Hey guys, it's Jeff from Pressure Luck, and today I'm super excited to share a recipe with you that's a meat-based recipe. I love short ribs. I have a bunch in my freezer. Well, I had a bunch in my freezer that I had from like 6 months ago. It's time to use them, and I said to myself, I want to do like a creamy Parmesan-y Tuscan style sauce, because we somehow in America equate a Tuscan sauce with garlic and Parmesan, right? But I guess it makes sense. I mean, that is abundant in Italy. Specifically Tuscany, I guess there's lots of Parmesan, garlic, and meat. So we're gonna make something so unbelievably grand, yet with no effort whatsoever. It's a joke, it's easy, it's laughably easy how easy this is, but don't tell anybody about it, they don't have to know. We're gonna go right to the Instant Pot and make the most amazing, succulent, full off the bone, creamy, delicious, tender Tuscan short ribs. Let's do it. We're gonna begin with one large yellow onion. And we're gonna slice them into 1/4 inch strands like this. Do that long ways into little strands like this and just separate them. All right, now let's move on. All right, so the star of this show are short ribs. Now, short ribs can look like various different things. Sometimes they're boneless, sometimes they're sliced into thin strips with little bones in them like this. Same bone, but just like sliced like a piece of bacon. I like to use the kind that are like this, cut into nice meaty chunks. You can get this at most markets. You'll find this in the meat department or any butcher really. And you want to get between like 4 to 6 pounds or so of the short ribs. It might sound like a lot, but don't forget there's bone in there and that counts as the weight when they weigh it out. So what I want to do is I want to lightly season it with some kosher salt and some black pepper. About 1½ teaspoons of each will do. And then just get all the sides. Alright, and that's all we gotta do for the time being with the short ribs. Now let's head on to the pot. Now at the Instant Pot, I've just added in 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil right in the pot. So let's go to the pot and hit the saute button and then make sure we're on the more or high setting, and we're gonna give that oil some heat and hit the start button if your model has it. If it doesn't, it'll start on its own after a few moments. Okay, and after about 3 minutes of our oil heating up, let's take our short ribs in batches and sear them on each side for about a minute tops. Right, and then just get all the sides. When I say a minute, I mean like about a minute total. So just give it like a light sear. So we're looking just like this, and then we are perfect. And then we can remove our batch and put it in a bowl, and repeat with the remaining short ribs. Okay, and we've given our meat a nice sear all around. Again, about 1 to 2 minutes tops for each batch. Alright, and there we go, nice and flash seared. You see, there might be still some redness left, that's fine. We just want a nice quickie here. Let's give it a little bit of color. Alright, let's move on to the pot again. I want to add in 1/4 cup of a dry white wine. And by that I mean like a Sauvignon Blanc or a Chardonnay. Don't use like a Riesling, that's too sweet. And once I've added the white wine, I want to deglaze the bottom of the pot, meaning scrape up any of the brown bits when we seared our short ribs. Alright, lovely. Now let's add in 6 tablespoons of salted butter, which is also 3/4 of a stick, to the pot. Alright, and once our butter's melted and we have our nice butter wine mixture in there going on, it's time to add in some veggies. I want to add in that onion, 1 pound of baby bella mushrooms that are already pre-sliced, and 9 cloves of garlic, which I've minced or pressed or crushed. It's the equivalent, by the way, 3 cloves to 1 tablespoon. And now we're going to saute this in our winey butter sauce. And do that for about 5 minutes. Just make sure everything's nice and coated. Now, if you don't want to use wine, that's totally fine. Don't you love a good rhyme? But instead, you can simply just add 1/4 cup of broth in when I added the wine. We're going to be adding more broth in a bit, as well as some more wine. But in this recipe, like in most of my recipes, you can absolutely just sub equal parts broth for what the wine called for. Alright, and after about 5 minutes of sauteing, our onions have softened a bit, our mushrooms have cooked down and browned, we're looking good and we're smelling amazing. Now I want to add in another 1/4 cup of white wine, the same wine, the dry one. So that's 1/2 cup of white wine in there, as well as 1 cup of a broth of your choice. I'm using garlic broth, but you can use beef broth, chicken broth. I like garlic broth for this though, because it's more like a Tuscany Parmesan sauce we're going to have in there. Now remember, no wine, that's fine. You can totally just use 1½ cups of broth instead. When we just added that 1/4 cup of wine in the beginning when we deglaze before we add the butter, just use 1/4 cup of broth, and then just add 1¼ cups of broth now. You know what I mean? Equal parts. And I'm also going to add in 1 teaspoon each of garlic powder, garlic salt, and some Italian seasoning. And let's stir that around in the pot so everything's combined. Now it's time to get my seared short ribs here and add them back to the pot. And I like to say nestle them in. Let's nestle them. Isn't that a cute word? Nestle. Alright, now what I want to do is I want to add more mushrooms. I'm adding another pound of mushrooms. This time I'm adding whole white button mushrooms that I just halved because I like them to be even more substantial. Put these on top. And then I'm going to top it off with between 5 to 8 ounces of baby spinach, as much as you can kind of get in there. Don't worry if the spinach goes above the line, it cooks down into nothing. Alright, we got about 5 ounces worth of spinach. Now I'm going to secure my lid, make sure that I'm in the sealing position. Now let's hit the cancel button or the keep warm cancel button if it shares the same button on your model, and then hit the pressure cook button. We want to go for 45 minutes at high pressure, and then hit start if your model has a start button. If it doesn't, it'll start on its own. And now that we're done pressure cooking, we're going to allow a 15-minute natural release, which we commonly do with any types of meat. And what that means is we wait for 15 to pass on this clock. It begins to count up once the pressure cycle is complete. And once that reads 15, then we'll finish it off with a quick release. Meanwhile, let's make a cornstarch slurry by mixing together 1/4 cup of cornstarch and 1/4 cup of water, equal parts of each. And then mix it until it goes from a cement-like consistency until a nice, smooth one. And now that 15 minutes of a natural release have passed, we're going to finish it off with a quick release. And the pin just dropped, so we're going to take the lid off. And now I want to go into my pot and just move over the mushrooms and the spinach, and then go to my short ribs specifically. And then carefully, they're going to be very, very tender, put them into a serving dish. You're going to want to almost fall off that bone. See that? One already did. Okay, and there we go. There are my short ribs removed to a bowl. It's okay if some of the mushrooms, onions, spinach get in there, but you know, don't worry about a few pieces. Most of it should still be in the pot, but that's fine if some are in the serving dish. And now let's turn our focus back to the pot again to transform this into the most amazing creamy Tuscan sauce. Now I'm going to hit the cancel or the keep warm / cancel button if it shares the same one. And then I'm going to hit the saute button again, and I want to make sure I'm on the more or the high setting. Alright, and as we come to a bubble, I'm going to stir in my cornstarch slurry. And as I pour it in, always stir it right away because we don't want it to clump up in there. And this is going to thicken everything beautifully into a wonderful consistency. A cornstarch slurry is magical that way. Okay, and after simmering, I'm going to turn my pot off. And now I'm going to kill the heat by hitting cancel, and then just leave it on the keep warm setting. Now I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of heavy cream, 1 cup of Parmesan cheese that's grated, 1 package of a spreadable herb cheese like a Boursin or an Alouette, or even 4 ounces of a brick of cream cheese is fine, and 2 tablespoons of dry parsley flakes. Now we're going to stir everything in the pot until everything becomes melded and combined. Once that Boursin or cream cheese is fully melded into the sauce, we're good to go. And there's my gravy looking perfect. Okay, now it's time to spoon this over our short ribs. Alright, and here we go. Do not skimp on this, be very generous. I love how people just equate a Tuscan sauce with like a garlic and Parmesan. So I've gotten in on it myself. And there we have it, guys. Some Tuscan short ribs and a giant plate. This is a lot. This is gonna feed at least like 4 to 6 people. At least 4 people. I mean, it depends on how big your appetites are and how much you love short ribs, which in my case, in Richard's case, we love them a lot. But I'll show you another way I like to serve these up. I have a bowl of rice pilaf here. I'm just gonna smooth this out so it's all over. It's a nice base for the bottom of the plate. And then add short ribs on top of it. Oh, what the hey, do a few of them. Nice. Feel free to drape some additional sauce over it. And the sauce will just cascade onto the rice itself. And finish it off with some extra mushrooms in there. And voila, Tuscan short ribs ready to serve over some rice or pasta or veggies, however you want it. Even on its own, it's just fine. Let's try it out. And there it is, Tuscan short ribs. Don't even need a knife for this. Let's try this out. Look at this. Right off the bone it comes. Right off the bone. And look at that. Look at that tenderness. You can't go wrong with short ribs, y'all. You can't. The flavor, the tenderness, that sauce. Oh, the sauce just elevates it to the next level. I love the mushrooms in there. If you don't like shrooms, just leave them out. You don't have to add them. Look at this. The bone is right here. It just fell off the bone. Look at that. Oh, it's really good over some rice. I really like it over rice. Beyond decadent. Beyond. Could not be easier to make. Sucking the meat right off the bone is something that I really love to do. You know, sometimes I find folks, including myself once upon a time, intimidated to make a meat dish because it's like, how do I make it taste so tender and delicious? Let me tell you something. You just put it in the pot, and it's gonna do it all for you. You don't have to do anything. You just have to give it a quick little sear, which is even optional, honestly. You don't have to sear it. But pressure cooking meat does wonders to the tenderness. It's a whole new other world of tender. Elvis Presley would love this meat. Heaven. I'm in heaven. This is as divine as Bette Midler, okay? And she's pretty divine. Bet I'll make this for you anytime you want. Literally no knife required. I am literally just around the bone on the short rib itself. I'm only using 2 hands here. One has to hold the plate. Look at this. Look at it. And the rice. This is on another level. Guys, if you enjoy these recipes, check out PressureLoveCooking.com because I have a ton of recipes there. And somehow I also became the #1 debut cookbook author of 2020. Thank you all for making that happen. Check out the books. They all have beautiful step-by-step photos in full color for every recipe. Over 750 color photos in the books. Go to facebook.com/PressureLoveCooking and like that page. Anytime a new recipe comes out, deals on items, tips, things of that nature. And of course at Pressure Love Cooking on YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram. I appreciate you all. Thank you for watching. And if you can't get to Italy this summer, which I'm super bummed that I can't, bring it to you with some Tuscan short ribs.